Hey guys, how's it going? My name is Jeff, and today we're going to be taking a quick look at the 2023 Mazda CX-50. So let's go ahead and let's get into it. This is the turbo with the Premium Plus and the all-wheel drive. So let's go ahead and let's talk about the details of this car. You can go ahead and start by looking at it. You can see it's very brutish and aggressive looking on the exterior, and I think it looks fantastic. This particular car is finished in machine gray metallic. One of the other cool things you'll notice is how it has this black plastic on it, which is to help with some of the off-road features of the car. I think that'll make it be just a bit more aggressive and help with things like desert pinstriping that won't scrape up against your paint, but instead this black, which is much cheaper and easier to replace or even fix for that matter. So that's kind of a really cool feature. One of the other things that makes this a little bit more unique than some of Mazda's other SUVs is the fact that this actually has over an inch of extra clearance over some of these standard Mazda SUVs like the Mazda CX-5, for example. So that's a pretty cool feature and update. You can see even looking at the front, it just looks a little bit more aggressive, and I think that adds a lot to the sort of off-road presence that this vehicle makes available. Now, as we walk to the back here, I want to show you one of my favorite features, just because why not, right? So first of all, this is all-wheel drive and the turbo, as you can see with the badges, but check this out. So this has the powered liftgate, so we go ahead and push the button twice, or you can go ahead and you could actually touch the handle underneath there as well if you wanted to do that. But we have that up. Check this out. You get some seats in the back, some nice flat room, just like the CX-50 in terms of similar space layout, but we have these handles. These handles actually drop the seats as easy as that. Works on both sides. You just click that, boom, both seats are down. Doesn't get any easier than that, and now you can put whatever you want in your back seats and take full advantage of the crossover SUV space that you get in the Mazda CX-50. Then, let's say you're done, you can actually just press the buttons again, and that liftgate will actually come down for you as well, which I think is a super cool feature, making it very easy, very accessible to use a vehicle like this. The next thing I want to show you is this engine. So let's go ahead and let's pop the hood here real fast. All right. And that's the terracotta interior, which looks fantastic, especially when contrasting with the gray. Whoops. All right, so check this out. This is Mazda's 2.5 liter turbocharged engine, which is super common in the Mazda lineup. You'll find it in things like the CX-5. You'll also find it in things like the Mazda 3. But here it is, it's available. It's rated at 227 horsepower from Mazda, although on higher octane, it can do up to 254 horsepower and 320 pound-feet of torque, which is pretty impressive. So this thing actually moves pretty good. But the other cool thing about the CX-50 that's different to some of its competitors, in terms, especially from the Mazda lineup, is the fact that this can tow up to 3,500 pounds. So that's quite a lot of features in there, a lot of horsepower. This thing will move pretty good, and it'll make sure it can get you to wherever your adventures are taking you in this machine. Next thing we should do is go ahead, take a quick look at the interior here. So we have this fantastic terracotta interior, and this is all inspired by the outdoors. This is supposed to be similar to what you'll find in a lot of outdoorsy materials, backpacks, things like that, that just make it finished a little bit better, make it look a little bit more pretty, and I think it's a nice color contrast with the gray. We have our typical Mazda steering wheel with all of our typical Mazda buttons that you'll find. So if you're used to driving Mazdas, you'll recognize a lot of the layout. For a lot of this, you have your typical system. This is not actually a touchscreen. This is this. One of the things that I do appreciate about Mazda is the fact that they do wireless CarPlay and wireless Android Auto. Most of the manufacturers make it wired still, but not in Mazda. You got two cup holders. You actually have a phone charger hidden in here, which is a very cool feature. This opens up separately, meaning if you were driving, had your arm down here, your passenger can still open this side up and get access to it without you having to move your arm. That's kind of a clever feature there, looking out for people. But we have some different vents here. You can see it's symmetrical for the driver, but it's asymmetrical for the passenger, which is kind of an interesting touch. The door handles feel great. Everything feels very solid on the car. I love the way they did the stitching. I think it does look very rugged. You have your typical multi-informational display here, which is multicolor, all of your electronic adjustments for the front. But let's go ahead and let's hop in the back seats and talk about that for a second as well. So look at this beautiful door handle. Pop that open real fast. And then let's talk about seat room and some of the luxuries you get in the back seats, because of course, if you buy your SUV, you're going to want to be able to make the most most of this as well. So as you can see here, we have this flip down, which has our cup holders. You can put that up for more seat room, but you actually get heated seats in the back here as well, which is a really nice luxury touch, along with 2 USB plug-in for power and even vents like this. So that's a pretty nice touch. You get a lot of luxury options in here, not to mention the fact that I'm about 6 foot even, and I can fit really comfortably in here. I've seen people even as tall as 6'4", sitting in this vehicle comfortably. So I think that's a really cool touch. Not to mention this moonroof that you see here in the center of the car will actually help to open up that interior, just make it feel a bit more spacious. But I can tell you, sitting here in the back, I actually feel really, really comfortable. I'd be able to sit in here for long road trips. Maybe not with 3 people in the back seat, but if you could fit 2 full adults back here comfortably and still have 2 adults in the front, meaning you could take your family or friends or even pets wherever you want to go and still have all the room in the back here, which I think is a really cool touch. So this car has a lot to offer. It does a good job of fitting any lifestyle, really making it a utility vehicle. So that's a pretty cool feature. But more importantly, now that we've looked around the outside of the vehicle, talked about the engine, power plant, a lot of the cool accessories, including the fact that this vehicle has been reinforced, features some reinforced pillars so you can throw more on the roof to go kayaking. This is truly a off-road vehicle for the enthusiast. Let's talk about what it's like to drive the 2023 Mazda CX-50. Okay, so let's talk about what it's like to drive the 2023 Mazda CX-50. So first of all, as far as the powertrain, a lot of it feels very similar to a lot of other Mazda vehicles. Mazda always has a fairly responsive, sort of sporty feeling to a lot of their vehicles, and that's the same with the CX-50. This, of course, having that same 2.5-liter turbo, it has a fairly decent get up and go that you'll find with a lot of other vehicles, especially if you fill it with a higher octane. Even though the engine's rated at 227, it's actually good for up to 254 horsepower, which makes it pretty impressive, and 320 foot-pounds of torque. We didn't do any testing as far as towing or anything like that, so I can't speak for it on that, but Mazda does have it rated for up to 3,500 pounds, which is pretty heavy if you decide that you want to be towing. The other thing I like about it is it's got a cool sort of weightiness to it. Having that extra inch of ground clearance is pretty nice because it feels like you can do a lot more off-roading with it, and while the different dynamics of the different sport and off-road modes aren't that impressive, let's go ahead and let's talk about them for a sec. So you have your normal driving mode, which is what Mazda recommends for regular driving, fuel economy, just things like that, your sort of daily runaround. However, there is a sport mode and there is an off-road mode. So the sport mode is supposed to make it a bit more dynamic, and it's going to change the way the vehicle reacts, shift a little faster, hold revs, things like that, like you would expect. That's available to be, adjusted with the computer. In off-road mode, it's supposed to be able to do a little bit more torque vectoring by adjusting some of the different components in the car and adjusting your braking and torque to help with traction. So that's kind of all that does. Nothing super dynamic, nothing that you might notice immediately on the road, but it's still there nonetheless. If you wanted it, then of course there's a towing mode just to set things up and make sure you don't do anything reckless while you're towing. So that's kind of a nice feature. As far as visibility is fantastic. That's to be expected with a crossover SUV. You get to sit a little bit higher and you get to appreciate some of those more outside aspects of the vehicle, and that's all available here in the CX-50, which is fantastic. It's very comfortable. I really appreciate the heated seats and the heated steering wheels in days like this in Phoenix where it's fairly rainy. Everything is fairly visible. You don't have a ton available to adjust on that digital dash, but you get the stuff that you might care about, such as fuel economy or even being able to see some of your driver assists and things like that. As far as the usability of the sound system is fantastic. Vehicle drives fine. Like I said, it's not a sports car, even though it does have the manual mode, and it does actually have the flappy paddles on the back of the steering wheel if you wanted to shift manually that way. But it's just a fantastic, easy to drive vehicle. I think you'll appreciate it because it feels more responsive. It's not over boosted or anything like that in terms of the steering wheel feel. It's got some resistance to it that's appreciated from a driving perspective that makes you enjoy driving the car more so than some of the over boosted vehicles that just feel numb to drive. So in that case, it's an absolute pleasure to drive, and like I said, that's a typical Mazda feature that I really appreciate. The sound system, of course, is a Bose 12-speaker system. It sounds absolutely incredible. Obviously, being able to take advantage of all the speakers in various places throughout the car, so I definitely appreciate that. The seats are comfortable. It's just a general nice driving experience, not to mention all of the other features that you get in this car. Just a lot of technology packed into this, and it's a pretty good looking vehicle. I prefer this to some of the other similar vehicles like the CX-5 that have similar engine lineups, similar sort of packaging in terms of like the SUV look, but this is a little bit more rugged, more off-roady, and just kind of suits that better, especially with the various heating and even in the back seats. So it's suitable for either using with your family and friends or however you want to use it in that environment. So it's really just a cool little vehicle to drive. It's really fun. I would say if you ever are interested in checking this vehicle out, I think a test drive would really solidify it for a lot of people, just because it is enjoyable to drive, which Mazda is really good at making these vehicles feel fun and enjoyable to drive. So I strongly recommend the test drive if you've been on the edge. I think that'll be what really puts you over to being your interest in the vehicle. So that's going to be an end of this video. If you guys like the video, go ahead and smash that like button for me. I'd really appreciate it, and subscribe for more videos like this in the future. And if you're interested in this, don't forget to go to your local Mazda dealer. And this is the brand new 2023 model, so I promise you'll have a very similar experience. And with that, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time.